because for a long time I didn't know how to do this. It's like I know how to take care of people and attune to people and be sensitive to people and their moods. But it's almost like a numbing of myself. Like this uncomfortable thing is coming up right now. Better shut it down so that I can continue to be the perfect friend, daughter, partner. Welcome to the Space Holders Medicine Podcast. We're your hosts, Malvina and Stephanie. This podcast is a sanctuary for space holders to delve into the unique medicine they offer. Each episode will explore their personal journeys, diverse modalities, and the profound experiences that inspire and shape their work. Join us as we uncover the transformative power of their craft. Enjoy!
Hello, everybody. My name is Malvina, and welcome to the Space Holders Medicine podcast. And I'm here with my very good sister and really good soul sister and friend, Stephanie. And I want to share a little bit about how this podcast came to be and what it's about. So I started my journey into like the spiritual space or the space of remembering a little bit over a year ago. I came from like a retreat, a plant medicine retreat, and I came back to Singapore not really knowing how to connect back after, after having myself being opened up and rearranged by medicine. I was in the process of integration. And one of the first people that I actually met and connected with was Stephanie. I had no idea what to expect. She was offering something. She was offering like a modality that I have never heard about called Akasma quantum healing, energy healing, and I just went for it. And it was such a beautiful and potent medicine. And that's how I really came to feel what it feels like to be held,
Mm.
and held deeply and safely. And ever since then, we became really good friends. So, like a few weeks ago, I was just daydreaming and um, because the idea of space holding has been very present and important to me, specifically because it stemmed from that place. And I was daydreaming that I wanted to do a podcast where I would converse with different people, space holders from this space and outside of this space, and what space holding means to them, because it's just I feel like it's so important and I see the value in it. So, of course, the first person that I wanted to interview was Stephanie. So I reached out to her about it, but she was like, okay, I'm keen, but I do not just want to be, I don't just want to be a guest. I want to co host with you. So I was just like, yeah, of course. Why not? Right. And it felt right. But I said I still need to interview you. I don't want to continue this podcast without having spoken to you about it, because I feel like it'll be the perfect way to start this episode or this series, as a pilot. So yes, this is how this podcast came to be. So Stephanie is a somatic therapist, and she does a bunch of other magical things. But yeah, Stephanie, if you want to share more about yourself and your background, what you do.
Yeah, for sure. So my work is largely informed by the approaches of somatics and depth psychology. Very, very recently, astrology meteored its way unexpectedly into my life in the strangest way, most randomly. And I had no idea how on earth I was going to integrate astrology into the work of somatics, depth psych, and also energetics, quantum healing. It's like, do I need yet another modality? And it just eased its way so effortlessly into everything that I've been doing. And right now, what gives me so much joy is to mentor new earth leaders and to mentor conscious creators, conscious entrepreneurs in developing their business and building their brand, in creating their brand identity, and also to support them in ideating with their offerings through the support of astrology, and also to connect with their inner knowing that's already inherently there. Uh, and I would say that somatics found me through just a random conversation. And it was that moment, because I had no idea what the word was. And I'm sure that we'll be speaking more about somatics later. So I will not go into it right now. But it was in that moment that I had a word to name the experiences that I've been experiencing in other areas of my life, like in yoga and also at work. These bodily sensations or emotions that come up without a story or without a reason in that moment. I had no idea what that was about, but it was something that's been very present for me. And when I came across somatics, it just clicked and it was that. And I just wanted to go in that direction. And then I found a program of somatics and depth psychology, and the rest is history.
Ah, that's so wonderful stuff. Um, so so I wanna learn about like how you've experienced space holding or what it means to you.
Yeah. Oh, I love talking about this. You know this, Mel, and it's why like I had to really like I couldn't just be a guest and I just wanted in on your project. And thank God that you agreed instead of no butt out Steph. um, let me think. Okay, I would say perhaps my experience might have. I'm just thinking of like Club Med, like it's so random. I've never thought of this before, but my family often goes to like Club Med around the world, and I everywhere I go, because I'd be a little child, right? Like a little rock rat. And everywhere I go, I would join the mini club. And what I do remember is how loving the women, mostly women of the mini club, would be to us kids, and would really make such an inclusive atmosphere whereby we are from all over the world because we're just there for the couple of days, and together we would put on performances, which is crazy because like possibly like we might have like 1 2 days to put on a performance for our family and our parents like after dinner. But to put on a troupe, to gather a troupe like that, to put on a show was just incredible. And also like how gentle they were with all of us. So I remember just loving my mini club experiences. But I would say possibly like professionally it started in my journey at Lululemon when we maybe had a development day, and this trainer Jenny Basar, she came from the Hong Kong headquarters, and she was just hilarious. She was captivating. She just really magnetized all of our attention. Like all eyes were on her, and the presence in the room was palpable because of how engaging she was. And I was just mesmerized, like idolizing her with like stars in my eyes. And I remember during a break, I met her um at the fitting rooms, and I possibly asked her what her role was and how do I get I was so blunt. I was like, what's your role and how do I get there? And she said that she was in training and development. And then during my next conversation with my store manager, Rina, at that time, I was like, a trainer is what I want to be in Lululemon. And please guide me. Like there was a term for it, but it's kind of like a pathway progress.
Mhm.
Like guide me and give me opportunities so that I would one day be able to be a trainer at Lululemon. And very quickly, like Rina was so responsive, and also like she really cared about my ideals, my goals, my dreams. So every time there was an opportunity for training, either my store or regionally, she would put me up for it. And ever since then, I've been a trainer, and I've been like training existing employees, the team members, and also like onboarding new ones with onto like training them on the culture of Lululemon, and also on the products, and also on themselves. So that was kind of my in on space holding. And then when I felt like I really wanted more, that was when I quit Lululemon and I started my master's program, Pacifica. And instead of just taking notes on the content that my teachers were talking about, my teachers were incredible, incredible space holders. And it was the first time ever I experienced embodied teaching and embodied learning. So that was how it was just a brand new world to me of how my teachers, all of them, would bring in the body into the classroom. And it's not just like mind communicating with mind, but it's also like, is your body receiving this knowledge, and is it alchemizing knowledge into wisdom as we match it with the experiences that we have had in the past that maybe we didn't have names for it, so it just remained like nameless or like unprocessed. But
Mm,
as I was learning, I was able to click and click and click, like giving a name, giving voice to the different experiences I've had throughout my life.
yeah.
So that was beautiful way of like learning what it means to be a very integrated space holder, so that we don't just speak to like a part of the people we're holding space for, like typically the mind, but
Mm,
really holding space for the mind body, um yeah. So there was that.
yeah.
And so at Lululemon it was the head, more of
Right.
like learning, and then Pacifica it was the body, sorry, the mind and body. And before that it was also like I was teaching yoga many times a week, and that was space holding for the body, and that was like really really paying attention to the details of the body and where
Mm,
there might be discomfort. And somehow I think because I have been really used to like bracing and not being able to relax, I I can see easily when students in the yoga classroom are doing the same. And in that sense, it offered me an opportunity to invite their body to soften. There were many books, yoga books, to teach me to hold space in this way. So I would say like my background would be from these three areas.
that's really cool. And I really wanna, yeah, that's really interesting because when you were sharing, initially it was space holding in not necessarily in a spiritual conventional way that we would perceive space holding, but you were training people. But I'm very curious, what is it that you received previously from, the previous training before you wanted an in, that made you feel like, oh, this is actually what it feels like to be held, like to be held by a good space holder? How does it feel from the other end, from your perspective, to be, in a space where you're just held nicely and tightly? Yeah.
Yeah. And like I'm even using this moment to inform me, because right now it's like you are holding space for me as your guest. So I would say it's a feeling of inclusivity. Like I feel included in your field. And it's also like being taken care of. And also, and this is so important for me, being seen as empowered. Like space holding feels very different from being overly mothering,
Mm,
whereby there is not a space for me to breathe and to spread wings.
yeah.
But it's really um the wholeness of the space holder, acknowledging and honoring the wholeness of the people being held in space.
Mm,
And it is that exchange that allows for growth, healing, and transformation. And other things I typically would feel in spaces that I love being held in is challenged, in loving ways that may not even come across as challenge, but it really stretches my mind. Um, whether that's like in being resourceful or stretching intellect, in processing new information. And also when a space holder guides me ever so lovingly and gently to my threshold, to so that I know that right here is my boundary of what is comfortable, and then what lies outside of this world of my comfort zone. And very seamlessly holds my hand as I expand my boundary. And that is what I feel would make like beautiful, beautiful space holding. It is the stretching in
Mm.
a way that's so that's safe and loving, and also the feeling of I'm right here with you.
That's so beautifully said because it's actually exactly how you how you hold space. I mean, I've experienced being in the same space with you on one-on-one as well as group, and it's just something that you do so naturally and beautifully. I'm gonna segue a little bit here. Um, how do you apply that in your personal life? Like in a professional space, it's something that you're just, you just switch on and you just do it so naturally. But, when you're in more personal settings and, relationships or environments, how are you able to integrate that? Since
Mm,
there's a lot of, it's very personal. And yeah, so yeah, just wanted to ask that.
thank you. I love this question so much. I think first and foremost, it would have to be space holding for myself.
Mm,
And I feel myself getting emotional speaking of this because for a long time I didn't know how to do this. It's like I know how to take care of people and attune to people and be sensitive to people and their moods. But it's almost like a numbing of myself. Like this uncomfortable thing is coming up right now. Better shut it down so that I can continue to be the perfect friend, daughter, partner,
mm,
um students, just so that I could perform. And I think that's what it's about. Like so much of my life has been about performing. And to perform sometimes requires for me to ignore the truth of what's going on inside so that I can get an A star on the outside.
mm,
And it's only, and as such, I realize what has happened is that I spend most of my life literally beside myself or above myself, like just dissociated. And when people ask me how I feel, I actually don't know how I feel, and I would come up with like uh kind of like a model answer that's perhaps not truthful at all. So I would say like a personal practice has really been to sit in stillness and to be with stillness isn't still. By the way, when I'm sitting, it's sometimes it's quite boisterous and it's perfect. So when I sit in stillness and I'm with all of the movement from within me, I'm able to hold space for the thoughts that I have. And a lot of people would think that meditation might be about like peace, bliss, just nothingness, silence. It's not that at all. My personal practice of meditation, sitting, I usually say I sit instead of I meditate, but the sitting allows for me to hold space for the different thoughts that I have. And I think of this practice as like throughout the day, all the fluctuations of like communication connections and the things that we do, it's like shaking, shaking, shaking a beautiful snow globe. And when I sit, it's like I'm setting that snow globe down and I can witness the snow begin to gently like feather itself down, and then I can see the beautiful figurine inside.
mm,
And every day or every time I sit, the figurine always shifts as to what is maybe needing attention from within me. Before I get there, what's important is to be with the initial part of the snow falling down, and that's to be with every single thought or
mm,
sensation or emotion, feeling, tone, image that might emerge the moment I let myself sit. And sometimes it feels like just like opening the dam doors, like the when the dam opens, like the river just gushes
mm,
because I've been maybe so preoccupied with life, and everything in my unconscious has been accumulating in the background.
mm,
So I experienced that, and then maybe there's just a moment of nothingness. Maybe. And whenever that happens, I'm conscious to not be attached to that, because the next thing I know, a thought would come in, or like, oh, I need to do this thing would come in. But when there's that moment of nothingness, sometimes what I do feel that I'm connecting with is that figurine. And usually it's literally a part of me that wants my embrace, my presence, my being with. And I think of this as like, it's not really, there's not a destination, there is not an end goal. The whole purpose is the journey of traversing the inner landscape of the body.
Mm,
And what I feel, the truth of the medicine is its presence and showing up
yeah.
with no expectations of what's going to happen, even if it's deemed as like a shitty sit, because it's just, I cannot focus, I don't want to be here, I don't want to do this. Even if that happens, it's the showing up. And that's what I do for myself. Like, I show up every day, day after day. Sometimes like right when I wake, sometimes just before I sleep, I lie in bed with my hand on my body, and I'm just with body, with no agenda. And Mary Oliver said this: it is when we are able to just keep showing up without needing to fix anything, without needing to make anything shiny and beautiful, but just showing up. That's when the innermost parts of us begins to tell us their secrets. That's
Mm,
how we begin to know ourselves at a deeper level. So it starts here. It starts from my own practice. And then, of course, with friends and with partners, it's the same. It's like listening and being with, without feeling any obligation to solve, to fix, to give advice and suggestions. And this has been, in the past, a really challenging thing, because I've been known to give really good advice and it makes my ego feel so good.
mm,
But what I've learned is that sometimes, it's not the solving so that I can feel like a hero at the end of the conversation, but it's simply the being with, the being a sounding board, being an embodied presence for someone to come into their own
mm,
truth and to embody their own presence. And it is through that spacious space holding,
mm.
that they are able to land upon their innate wisdom that has always been there, and it doesn't need to come from anything outside.
Yeah, wow, that's really beautifully shared and said stuff. Like it really comes down to, yeah, you're right. It really comes down to presence and allowing for what is to be,
Mm,
right? There's nothing to do, there's nothing to solve. Just allowing it to be and come up makes whatever it is that wants to come up feel safe.
yeah.
And yeah, within ourselves as well as with other people. So yeah, that's incredible. Um, so yeah, one of the things I want to ask is like, what do you feel like would be the essential qualities or skills that would be necessary to hold space with integrity and authenticity? Like we mentioned about allowing for what is to come up and be, right? But what if there are certain things that we need to express? And I'm speaking in a more personal space, because usually when we're in a professional setting, I find that it's a little bit, I'd say, easier to create a little bit more of a boundary. But when it comes to something that really triggers us or um, affects us because it's so personal, with personal relationships, how do we find the balance between holding space for another as well as honoring how we're feeling, what we're feeling?
Mm. Oh my God, this is such a tender question. Um, and I've recently had a very personal experience around exactly this with my partner. And what I learned from this experience is that as we hold space for another, it's so important to make sure that we are being held space for. And if it's not by another, it's by ourselves. We always have to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves first. Otherwise, everything that we are offering, giving, um, comes from a place of depletion. It comes from a place of need. It comes from a place of hunger. It comes from a place of, I'm giving you this, so please give me back that, you know? Whereas if we are already being taken care of within ourselves, there is a capacity to uphold and to sustain boundaries, and there will also be communication within us when a dynamic, a conversation, a situation is going a little close or beyond our threshold of what we can bear or stand in the moment itself. And it fluctuates, it changes from time to time, depending on the time of month,
Yeah.
depending on what kind of day or week we might have had. It really depends on our capacity in that moment. And I would say, like, when we are aware that we're taking care of ourselves, it gives us that capacity to say, like, okay, we need to pause right here. Or to bring voice to what's going on internally. And let's say that we don't have that awareness in that moment because maybe we are really caught up in what's going on externally. It would then be an opportunity after that moment has maybe passed to reflect on what could have been done differently. And of course, nothing could have been done differently because what we did in each moment is the best that we can do. But what is it that maybe next time we can do differently so
Mm.
that we can better navigate the situation? So I would say, in short, to answer your question, it's really the sense of embodied presence within ourselves that would inform us of everything, the boundaries, the our threshold, our limit, our capacity, and also how do we navigate this present situation from our presence and not reacting, um which is literally the word reacting,
Mm.
um a similar response from a past time, because even if it's a similar situation, we are not who we were in the past when that has happened, and
Mm.
therefore it kind of warrants or demands of us a different response just because of the wisdom we have gained since that experience. So it's really, um when we are in our center, when we are anchored in our bodies, in ourself, in our truth, that gives us all the agency and sovereignty in the world to create a pathway that feels authentic, aligned, and truthful for us in each given moment.
Mm. Just letting that sink in. That's, yeah, that's incredible. I just had a thought while you were sharing all this as too. I feel like space holding is such like an Aquarian age kind of thing
Mm.
because it's something, I mean, I feel like it's become more present now, through the spaces that are, coming out and
Mhm.
evolving. And through these spaces, we're also able to integrate the same practices in our personal lives, in our individual lives. And I feel that those both go hand in hand. Like the space holding or being held shouldn't just stop in these spaces, but also be very much present in the life that
Right.
we um, carry from a personal level. But yeah, on that note, I want to ask, has there been any spaces that um you've held that where you witnessed or experienced something impactful or transformative, whether it's from the people you're holding space for or whether it's for yourself?
Yeah. Uh, so there was this so many, but one of my most profound memories, core memories, is my experience in the body module of Embodied Flow 300-hour advanced yoga teacher training. Before that, for about a year, um, we would in school in Pacifica, our somatics and depth psychology master's program, we would be invited to do authentic movement, which is like it's meditation in movement, and it is to listen to the contents of the body and to witness how they want to express themselves through movement. And I remember because that was literally my first foray into free movement, into creative expression. And that was just terrifying, so terrifying. I was good at following choreography. I was good at following instructions with asana cue and alignment cues. This thing with no boundaries of, I mean, there were boundaries, but there's not quite a boundary of how we can move and express ourselves. I remember so significantly that my feet really felt rooted into the ground and frozen more than rooted. Um, and I was just so afraid to move my feet. I was so afraid to move around the room. I was so afraid to explore myself in movement because it honestly, it's like I'm showing myself to the world and it just feels so vulnerable. Like literally taking a step felt so vulnerable because that's like creative self-expression. And I think this is why right now leading somatic movement, embodied movement means the whole world to me because I've experienced like the extreme end of freeze.
Mm,
Um, so what happened in embodied flow yoga teacher training was it was a big group, like 30 something of us in a shala. And what it was that when we were first invited to be in free movement, were that I really felt the there was just a felt sense of a containment by the two teachers, Scott and Tara, and also everyone in the shala, every other student were in their own process, just exploring their bodies really in their own process. Nobody seemed to be looking at the other people. Nobody seemed to be worrying about being judged. And it was just the combination of that large group witnessing or this being modeled to me of what it's like to just come into myself and be in myself instead of being on the outside looking at myself and thinking how might other people be looking at me or judging me. um and then also the teachers doing the movements with us instead of standing looking at us, they were doing it with us and obviously holding space for us. It was the combination of these things that allowed me to just tiptoe into myself and to explore, okay, what's here, and then to explore like small movements. And the training was about like six weeks each ish long. By the end, not even by the end, maybe halfway through the training, I was already like prancing and galloping around the room. And that was how effective their space holding was, and also the group holding space for themselves and
mm,
possibly the group was, so that I felt so safe to just come into myself. Like there is safety here.
got it. Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Um, have you encountered any challenges as a space holder in your time of having held space?
Hmm. It's not something that I can,
Or rather, have
yeah.
you, based on your knowledge or, being in the space, what do you feel like would be the challenges that space holders sometimes, face? Like one of the more common
Yeah.
challenges.
Yeah. So something that I learned that I really appreciate is that in every group there's going to be a black sheep. A
Mm-hmm.
black sheep is someone who carries the shadow of the group. And what that means is that sometimes we are whole. We are whole in our yin and yang. We are whole in our heavenly attributes and qualities as well as our earthly ones. And also um all of the parts. Some of these parts we don't want to come out in the presence of other people, outside people, people who are not like our partners, families, close friends. Um, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that we are not this person. Um, it's just that we are discerning and selective of the persona that we put
Yeah.
forth based on the group that we are in. Um, so with that, there's going to be parts of us that consciously we move into the background and we don't let this group see it. In depth group work, there is always going to be someone that brings forth the shadow of the group in this way of maybe expressing overtly these qualities that the rest of the group are pushing away. And because of that, if there is not an awareness in the rest of the group or the space holder, it would just be seen as this person is a bit troublesome or troublemaker. And then also like can you just not be here? But
Mm.
it's not that at all. And what I've really learned to embrace and really enjoyed learning is that um this person makes the group whole. And what is important is to bring voice to what's going on. And for each person in their maturity to also acknowledge that I see that in me too. I see you. I am you. Um, and to practice whether it's understanding compassion with a sense of boundary, like actually that behavior is not okay here, if it calls for it. So
Yeah.
I would say the challenge lies when where there is not an awareness, a self-awareness to know that to know firstly that in each group setting or family constellation setting there will be a black sheep. And the second one is when we are projecting our shadow qualities onto that person as opposed to owning it and recognizing, I see that, that's familiar. I see it
Mm.
in myself too. And that would be what makes for just open communication and authenticity in the connection.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah, so and because I was very, very lucky to learn this super early on in my journey, I don't feel like I've been really, really challenged
Mm.
in this aspect. And in fact, like what I really appreciate is when maybe because the work I offer is so niche, it draws or attracts or magnetizes a certain quality or certain type of a person to be interested in this work.
Mm.
Like maybe it's somatics, astrology, expressive arts, psychology, like just the combination of it. There is always a sense of like there is always a flavor of sweetness in the
Mm.
people that's drawn to this work. A flavor of sweetness, gentleness, tenderness, sensitivity. And what I find is that when people are sensitive, in the best way and aware of their sensitivity, they are able to hold space for themselves whenever these situations might emerge. They are able to hold space for other
Mm.
whenever these situations emerge. So I I would say I have been pretty lucky as a
Mm.
space holder thus far.
Yeah. No, I think that that makes a lot of sense. Like when people are sensitive, they have like a depth. They have a certain depth to understand how things feel and how other people's parts may feel if it needs to be held, right? So I feel like, yeah, that's super important. And yeah, I think you mentioned about projection. I feel like that's one thing that's also so important as a space holder to not project ourselves into the people that we're holding space for, um, and instead use that to self inquire later on. Um, yeah, so actually now I just want to get to the fun part. So what advice would you give to individuals who aspire to become space holders who are currently navigating through their own space holding journey?
Mm. The first thing I would say is to know themselves, to know yourselves. And whether it be a daily ritual of meditation, journaling, self-reflection, contemplation, or having a space holder. And I feel that every space holder does need a space holder, so that we are receiving and giving, receiving and giving, receiving and giving. There's this beautiful cycle all the time, and it's not just receiving from ourselves, but it's receiving from other, because
Yeah.
it's really different when we are holding space for ourselves. We are both a space holder and we are being held space for, so there is not a complete like a
Yeah.
dropping in.
Yeah.
Whereas if someone else is holding space for us to journey and delve into ourselves, we can completely surrender to the
Yeah.
process. And in that way, depending on how much trust and rapport we have established with our space holder, there's potential to go so deep, like beyond where we would imagine ourselves to go. And this in psychology, it's known as a psychopomp.
Okay.
Also like Mercury,
Mm.
Mercury or Hermes, the Hermes, the Greek god, taking the hand and leading whoever into the underworld, into Hades world. And literally that's what we're doing. Going into our own underworld or inner world. Sometimes there are realms inside of us that we might feel apprehensive of going into when we are by ourselves. But with someone there to hold our hand, open those doors with us, step across those thresholds with us, there is so much more courage maybe to see the contents on the other side of the threshold.
Mm.
And yeah, so it's mostly these two things, to first be able to know ourselves and to have a space holder, and I would say to constantly be filling our cup. Like
Mm.
before we hold space for anyone, we should be really pouring into ourselves first.
Yeah.
I feel like these three things are actually one and the same, so possibly.
Yeah. Amazing. I was actually about to ask you about advice on maybe any techniques or rituals that you find helpful in creating and maintaining a sacred space. And you mentioned like journaling, meditation. Are there any other things that you want to add to that?
Physically, it tangibly, it would be to take care of our physical space. If we are space holding in a physical space, it would be for the space holder to arrive first, to
Yeah.
whether it's to connect with the spirit of the place or just connect with the space, to know ourselves in a bodily way in the space, and whether we have personal rituals of purifying the space to prepare the space to receive the group. It would be having time to do that. So there's that, and then also logistically, just to make sure that other things that the people we're holding space for would be using is prepared, whether that be like the toilet being clean, tissues being prepared, water, tea being prepared, the temperature being um appropriate, and cleanliness of the space,
Mm.
all of these logistical things. And for me, a lot of my work is virtual. So what I do is that I take care of my physical home. I make sure that my desk is beautiful and it's set up for me to be in the space to hold space. Um, and and it's a lot to do with taking care of my um external space as a reflection of my internal space. So literally every time before I begin work, I would clean the house. And what I feel is that as I'm cleaning the house, I'm also purifying my inner self.
Mm.
And let's say because I I would have back-to-back clients. In between each client, I would have a ritual of washing my hands. Even though it's virtual, but I would have a ritual of washing my hands, and it's kind of like I am disengaging from the energies of this session, and
Mm.
I'm being a blank canvas, a clean slate for my next session.
Yeah.
Or I would practice dry brushing for the same purpose. And other things would be to really take care of myself, my body, physically throughout the day as I'm seeing back-to-back clients, whether it be preparing snacks, preparing food, preparing water, so
Mm.
that I'm always nourished and I'm always full as I am holding space for others.
Mm. The space holder definitely needs to always be held, right? And yeah, that's exactly what you're doing. That's amazing. Okay, so how do you see the landscape of space holding in the future? Where do you feel like it's going? Or if there's
Mm.
any opportunities to anticipate? Basically, anything that comes to you with regards to, yeah, the future of space
Yeah.
holding.
It's like endless, infinite possibilities. But what I do foresee is that is empowerment.
Mm.
Everyone really taking care of themselves, everyone being a leader and acknowledging that they are a leader, first and foremost, of themselves and of their lives, and then of people, others, not just people. And also for everyone to recognize that there is literally a seat for everybody in this beautiful orchestration of the world, this
Mm.
perfect orchestra of the world, that each of us have our own seats. And Bill Plotkin says this so beautifully in the book Soulcraft, which literally every line was like honey to my soul. And he says something like, there is a seat or a job for everybody, and this is a job or a seat that we cannot be fired from, that no one else can take our place, because it's literally our journey that informs how we show up and what we offer,
Yeah.
what we bring, who we be. It is our journey and our experiences, our values and our principles, that informs our medicine.
Mm.
And as such, there is no one else like us, even if the work is the exact same name, even if it's the exact same technique, the same
Yeah.
sequence. No one else, there is no one else who will hold space the exact same way as we will. And therefore, our medicine is unique to only us. And that is my deepest wish for humanity, for everyone to acknowledge that their experiences, even the hardships and their obstacles in their lives, were not in vain,
Mm.
but in fact, it is to feed into their wisdom, so that they remember their wholeness, they remember why they're here, they remember their gifts, and the remembrance is through forgetting.
Yeah.
Uh, it's we forget, then we meet with the obstacle, the dark night of the soul,
Mm.
and in the darkness, we are able to then finally maybe see our own light, because we
Mm.
can't see our own light in light. It just
Yeah.
dissolves into the rest of the light. But in the depths of darkness, of shittiness, that's when we are able to then see, oh my God, this light has been here all along, just maybe veiled up by illusions, and we have forgotten about it. Then we remember this light, and this light then becomes the beacon for us to lead the way on others that are maybe going through a similar life journey, until, and then we become their guide until maybe we meet at a crossroads whereby now they are ready to go on their own path, and then our work with them is complete for now. But it doesn't mean that our light doesn't need to shine anymore. We'll continue shining, we'll continue magnetizing people who really resonate and have things to learn and to be inspired by our journey and our embodiments.
Mm. The future of space holding looks very bright. Yay. Okay, so do you have can you share any guiding principles or mantras that encapsulate your approach to space holding?
Yeah. Um Something that I use for myself whenever I maybe get fearful or I get a bit clouded by doubts, and whenever I don't have capacity to trust and to surrender, would be these lines of, I am taken care of, I'm safe, I am supported, I am guided. So these four lines, and I have experiences that literally when I go through them, I take a somatic like snapshot photograph, so that I can always lean onto these memories to,
Mm.
and it's kind of like evidence. Like, I'm not just saying these words from the ethers or to feel good, but it's when I'm saying them, they are reminders of how I have been safe. Um, till now, I have been supported, I have been guided, I have been taken care of till now, and there's so much evidence. Um, for me to know that all this is true. Um, so that would be that's a personal ritual that I use for when I need it.
Mm.
And I would say like maybe mm, your question was any advice for space
You can,
holders.
yeah, that too. I mean, the
Yeah.
idea is like whatever, basically by sharing your principles and your personal mantras, it might, give guidance to other space holders. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say it would be that.
amazing. Thank you so much, Steph. That was so beautiful. So much wisdom. Um, and potency in your words, in the way that you share your experience with space holding and the medicine, your medicine, with space holding. So thank you so much for that, and I can't wait for us to be speaking to more space holders.
Me too. I
Yay!
cannot wait to speak with you.
Ooh, scared. All right, love. Okay, I'll see you soon, and thank you everybody for listening to us. And I hope you've received a lot from what Steph shared. She really is one of my trusted friends and space holders. So yeah, I feel very blessed. So thank you very much.
Thank you.